Hafa, good evening, and thanks for tuning in to PNC's News First. We're live from the Broadcast Center at Conta. I'm Clint Rigel. Topping your news first tonight. Senators went into the 7th special session for the fiscal crisis this afternoon to discuss the governor's bill to shorten the timeline for furloughs and layoffs. However, they quickly referred the bill to a committee for it to have a public hearing. In response, the governor called them into an 8th special session to discuss Senator Joe San Augustine's Bill 248, which would create a 2% sales tax. It's a bill that just had a public hearing this morning, along with Senator Fernando Esteves's Bill 249, which also creates a 2% sales tax, but with exemptions on certain necessities. Here's more. Revenue Tax Director John Camacho, GITA Administrator Jay Rojas, and DOA Director Edward Burns testified in favor of both measures to create a 2% sales tax.
A sales tax is visible and has a clear advantage in being one of the most easiest of taxes to collect. The taxpayer can see transaction by transaction how much tax he or she is paying, and the seller can accumulate and account for the amount that he will be collecting during the day and remitting the following month on a daily basis. That helps with cash planning.
Burns says 45 states and Washington, D.C. all have sales taxes. He says Louisiana is the highest at 9.98%. The lowest is Alaska at 1.76%. And the average is 7%, which is 1% higher than the combined current 4% business privilege tax and sales tax of 2% that is being proposed. Local businessman and GUAM Banking Association member Phil Flores asked for an exemption to the proposed sales tax.
But I run 13 different companies in Guam in all types of different industries, trash, funerals, whatever. And 12 of them will pay any of the taxes that you levy on us, or we are supposed to levy with a sales tax on our customers. But I'm asking that, and now I'm putting on my banking hat representing GBA, I'm asking that banks be excluded from your bill, respectfully asking. I like their being excluded from your bill because I just don't know how to implement it. First, we went to the American Bankers Association and asked them, are there any sales tax, any jurisdictions that have a sales tax on banks' customers? Because if I understand correctly, the tax is not on the bank. The tax is on the bank's customers as a sales tax. They said no, not for core income. For unrelated business like safe deposit box rentals, some states have that, but most of them don't have anything like that.
DOE Board Chairman Mark Mendiola says school parents have told him to demand the funding that the school system needs, and hence he and Superintendent John Fernandez testified in favor of both measures.
We represent 4,000 employees, 31,000 students in our public schools. The fiscal crisis is real, and that's the message we've been giving out to the community.
Guam Chamber of Commerce board member Bobby Shringi testified in general on what they feel is a, quote, palatable approach to addressing the fiscal crisis.
The Guam Chamber of Commerce does not, and I think we've noted this on many occasions, does not support any proposal to increase the BPT, the business privilege tax. However, we understand that with the circumstances being outlined by appointed officials and elected leaders, that if it is the resolve of the government of Guam to pursue certain increases, that a balanced and responsible approach be pursued, which will create the least amount of an impact to island residents.
The Guam Chamber of Commerce is recommending that within 6 months of any sales tax bill, that GovGuam, number one, produce a plan of action that permanently cuts $33.5 million from GovGuam's budget. Number two, convert the current BPT into a sales tax. 3, exempt duty-free retailers. 4, implement a 5% online sales tax on internet purchases. 5, review and raise real property taxes. And 6, create a visible BPT with a 1% increase. Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association President Mary Rhodes recommended that members of the private sector and the government take a look at all of the numerous bills that have been introduced over the past few weeks to address the fiscal crisis and help craft one comprehensive bill that makes realistic cuts and government reorganization as well as revenue enhancements.
Late this afternoon, lawmakers went into the Committee of the Whole to ask questions of the Revenue Tax Director John Camacho about the bill, his recommended amendments, and how he would implement the sales tax. As of news time, they were still discussing the bill in the Committee of the Whole. GDOE Superintendent John Fernandez has sent a message to Education Chairman Senator Joe San Agustin, throwing his support behind Bill 248 and 249, which received a public hearing today. Fernandez says these two bills that would create a 2% sales tax will address the current financial crisis. Of the two, however, DOE gave a preference to Bill 248, which was introduced by Senator San Agustin. That bill sets aside 0.25% of the sales tax specifically to help with DOE's capital needs. Fernandez says the allocation would go towards facilities and improving Guam's public schools. DOE is facing a projected $19.6 million cash shortfall over the remainder of the fiscal year and a $27.1 million budget reduction in fiscal year 2019. The Department of Education is also reviewing the latest executive order handed down by Governor Eddie Calvo, as well as the bill he submitted to the legislature yesterday, which would speed up the furlough process from 90 to 30 days. Education Superintendent John Fernandez says they're trying to determine how the latest executive order applies to DOE and how a 32-hour work week could impact their schools, students, staff, and teachers. An Education Board special meeting is called for Tuesday at 6 p.m. At that time, the board and DOE officials will determine a second round of cost-cutting measures. Fernandez says they've already implemented Phase 1, which is projected to save them $12 million over the next 6 months. Our next story is on two separate cases of child sex abuse, one involving a 4-year-old girl and another an 8-year-old girl. The first case was filed against 46-year-old Edward Matsunanga, who was charged with first-degree criminal sexual conduct as a first-degree felony and family violence. He's accused of sexually assaulting a 4-year-old girl with a stick, which caused bleeding. A report states that the girl's genital area was injured and had some bruising. She was taken to GRMC for treatment. The little girl was at a relative's house at the time when Matsunanga allegedly assaulted her. But when police interviewed the defendant, he claimed it was a setup and that the family wanted to get him in trouble. The second case was filed against 36-year-old James Figure and Falapin Rogan. According to a magistrate's report, Figure fondled an 8-year-old girl while she was asleep. While the victim reported the sexual abuse to Rogan, who was a relative, she reportedly told the girl to, quote, keep it a secret. A week later, the victim, crying out of fear, went to another relative to report their abuse. Police interviewed both Figure and Rogan, who, according to the report, claimed that when Figure was drunk when the incident happened. Figure also told police that he did not remember ever touching the victim. The alleged crime was reported about 6 months ago. The magistrate report does not explain the delay in arresting both Figure and Rogan. A convicted child rapist who was awaiting sentencing has asked the court to allow him to be released on furlough for a month, but when the court denied his request, he decided to withdraw from the plea agreement. PNC's Jolene Toves reports.
Martin Rengechi pleaded guilty to raping a little girl for a period of 10 years. The sexual assault, according to court documents, began when she was 7 or 8 years old. Rengechi blamed his actions on, quote, a Chuki's love potion, end quote, which he told police was placed inside his pillow by his sister-in-law. Rengechi was supposed to be sentenced in court yesterday, but that was postponed as the government was unable to locate the victim, and Rengechi had motioned for furlough.
We're requesting that he be allowed out of custody for a period of time. We're requesting a month. The reason for that is his mother is she's sickly, she's aging, it's more difficult for her to get around.
According to his attorney, Rengechi has about 2 years left to serve, as indicated on the plea agreement. He further stated that the government has no objection to his release and is only requesting a shorter time period. Prosecutor Peter Santos confirmed. But Superior Court Judge Anita Socola denied the request for furlough, citing that there is no documentation to back up the claims that his mother is sick. She also notes that once Rengechi is sentenced and processed through DOC, he could apply for the extended leave program, which would allow him to visit his mother if she was bedridden. But based on what the court saw today, it did not deem that Rengechi's mother is bedridden, as she was present for the proceeding. This made Rengechi upset.
In light of the courts making a ruling on denying your client's motion, are we going forward today with the sentencing?
Judge, Mr. Rangetti, I just spoke to for a few minutes in the holding cell, and he's upset by the ruling that the court made. He's indicated to me that he wants to withdraw his plea at this point.
The severity of what's going to happen could be worse. You go ahead and file your motion then, sir. I knew that this was going to happen if he did not get it, and that's why the court was very concerned that this ploy was used to see what the court was going to do. And if the court were to allow him to have the furlough, then he would go forward with the plea.
Judge Sokola sternly expressed that the court would not be put in such a position, further citing that Rangetti was given a really good deal, as according to the plea agreement, he would be sentenced to 8 years with all but 3 years suspended and credit for time served. But now all the charges are back on the table. That means he once again faces first-degree criminal sexual conduct as a first-degree felony, which carries a prison term of life. 2 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct, which has a sentence of 15 years to life, and a 3rd charge of third-degree criminal sexual conduct, which would have been the only charge in the plea agreement, which carries a 1 to 8 year sentence. In light of this decision to not move forward, his attorney, John Morrison, is withdrawing from the case as his legal counsel, and Judge Sokola will be setting the matter for trial. The next hearing is April 2nd. Reporting for PNC News, I'm Jolene Toves.
Keep watching PNC. We have more news first after this.